break. Now, Parliament's Ethics Committee has recommended that MP Joe Maswanganyi be suspended, and that for, and I quote, failing to understand his role as Minister of Transport back in 2017. Now, that's when he failed to select a new board of directors for the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. And now civil society organisation #Unite Behind was one of the groups that laid a complaint against Maswanganyi. And to unpack the story even further, I'm not joined by its director, Zackie Achmat, this morning to take this conversation forward. Zackie, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. Let's talk about this decision by the Ethics Committee. Is it a victory for you as an organisation? We know that previously you had laid complaints against the former Transport Minister.
Good morning, Tumelo. It is critical to remember that Parliament is the most important legal instrument to hold people accountable. The recommended suspension of Mr. Joe Maswanganyi, who holds one of the most powerful positions in Parliament as chair of its portfolio committee, is a small baby step, but it's consequential to holding MPs accountable. Our job now is to ask Parliament to implement a stronger sanction against Mr. Maswanganyi and against the other corrupt MPs. Our job is to ensure that the Zondo Commission's recommendations into state capture and against ministers and MPs who've been corrupt, that those are implemented properly. And sadly, we have not seen much action except against Mosebenzi Zwane, who we also laid a complaint against. And that complaint came from 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So you imagine the Parliamentary Ethics Committee takes years to act. In relation to Fikile Mbalula, who we also laid a complaint against, you know, there have been two complaints, two findings by the public protector against him. Never mind what Chief Justice Zondo said about him. The one was related, of course, to his time as Minister of Sport and Recreation. The other one relates to PRASA, where he appointed his friend, and his friend appointed his friends as administrator and advisors at double the cost to PRASA. Now, we laid complaints against 6 MPs. PRASA has probably been destroyed by state capture. And what is the important thing, again, to remember is that people die on rail lines. People are late for work. People lose work. People don't get to school. Children don't get to school. People don't get healthcare services. And about 40 million rand has either been stolen through state capture, wasted, or cannot be accounted for by PRASA itself.
So in your view, if I may just come in there, what would then, warrant a stronger sanction, as you've just recommended?
Well, I would say that if Parliament is serious about disciplining MPs and getting rid of corrupt MPs or those who facilitate state capture, they must be asked, they must be removed from any position of power at the very least. And the best thing to do is to suspend them until they've cleared their names or been through a proper investigation. The sad thing about the Parliamentary Ethics Committee is that it's let off Sifisa Buthelezi, it's let off Digeledi Magatsi and Fikile Mbalula based on our complaints. So we in court against Parliament, something we don't want to do. We would like to ensure that Parliament's rule. We weren't allowed to comment on the investigations, lay further evidence before the committee, because the committee is held in secret. That is unconstitutional. You cannot have an ordinary criminal being brought up in the public and their name made public, the charges made public, the issues dealt with openly, but MPs get to hide. We've got a complaint against Justice Makubele. If a judge could go through a public hearing
Right.
Why can an MP not, who should certainly be held to the highest standards?
Zackie, I also just want to talk about, at least two complaints here, which I understand that Parliament has, rather the committee, found that the former Transport Minister, Masonganye, was actually not in breach with regards to these complaints laid by yourself, #Unite Behind. The first being the complaint you laid regarding that 79 million rand paid by Sofambu to the ANC. We know that that's the company that's been supplying PRASA. The second complaint, though, that you've laid was with regards to unlawful conduct you claimed by the former Transport Minister, Joe Masonganye, when he attempted to negotiate with China to develop Moloto Rail Development Corridor. What's your response to the Ethics Committee in finding that there was no breach by the former Transport Minister?
If you take the ANC complaint, that was exposed in court. It came to the courts and it came to the Zondo inquiry. The courts didn't make a finding at that point because it was a civil claim. The Zondo Commission had very clear evidence that entities linked to the ANC got money. It also had evidence before it that Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the former Treasurer General, asked for 10% of the deal. Now, what we have in this is Parliament's Ethics Committee is protecting the ANC. It refused to investigate the issue and said there was no evidence. So essentially, they're not doing their job. When it comes to the Moloto Corridor and China, Mr. Masonganye, in my view, attempted to do what President Zuma did with the nuclear deal, and that is sign an international agreement to bypass the Public Finance Management Act. Now, if we look at what Parliament should have done, it should have had regard to the evidence that the documents that was used while he was Minister of Transport and related to his trip to China, where we believe, and it was reported, that he attempted to facilitate this deal.
Well, of course, we'll leave it there, Zackie Achmat. Thank you so much for speaking to me, of course, at the back of that Ethics Committee decision against its rather former Transport Minister, that's Joe Masonganye. That is Zackie Achmat, Director of #Unite Behind. Thank you for your time.